This is the true account of Blanche Monnier, a young woman who vanished from French society in the year 1876, only to be discovered 25 years later in conditions so horrific that even hardened police officers were left traumatized. This is not a tale of mystery or speculation. Every detail comes from official records, court documents, and newspaper reports of the time. If you find stories like this meaningful, please consider subscribing because it helps me continue researching and sharing these forgotten histories. Now, let us begin. On a spring day in 1876, in the respectable French city of Poitiers, a young woman named Blanche Monnier simply disappeared. She was 25 years old, described by those who knew her as beautiful, full of life, and well-educated. She was the daughter of a prominent widow named Madame Louise Monnier. Blanche moved in the upper circles of provincial French society. She attended social gatherings, wore fashionable clothing, and lived the life expected of a young woman of her class and era. Then, without explanation, she was gone. There was no scandal in the newspapers, no investigation launched by the authorities, no search parties looking for answers. Blanche Monnier had not run away, nor had she been taken by strangers. She had simply ceased to exist in the eyes of society, and for 25 years no one asked why. On May 23, 1901, the Attorney General of Paris received an anonymous letter. The handwriting was educated and the French was precise. But the message was explosive. The letter claimed that a woman was being held prisoner in terrible conditions at 21 Rue de la Visitation in Poitiers. It described her as lying on a rotten bed of filth, surrounded by waste, and so thin she was close to death. The letter gave precise details including the address, the location of the room, and the most shocking claim of all, that the person responsible was Madame Monnier, a widow known for her perfect reputation. Authorities in Paris sent the letter to Poitiers. The local police were doubtful. Madame Monnier was known as a pillar of the community and had even received an award for her charitable works. The idea that such a woman could be hiding a prisoner seemed impossible. Even so, the letter was too precise to ignore. On May 23, 1901, officers arrived at the address and demanded entry. What the police found would haunt them forever. The house appeared well kept and belonged to a wealthy family. Madame Monnier greeted the officers calmly, with the confidence of someone who believed she had nothing to hide. She lived there with her adult son, Marcel. When asked about a prisoner, she denied everything, but the officers searched anyway. On the second floor, they found a door locked and padlocked from the outside. The wood around the lock was scratched and gouged, as if someone had tried desperately to claw their way out. When the officers demanded the key, Madame Monnier finally lost her composure. The police broke down the door. The smell hit them first, a wave of human waste, rot, and decay so strong that several officers had to step back. The room was completely dark. The shutters had been nailed shut for years. As their eyes adjusted and they brought in light, they saw something beyond imagination. On a filthy mattress in the corner lay what looked like a skeletal form. It was a woman, hardly recognizable as human. She weighed about 55 pounds. Her body was covered in her own waste. Her hair was long, matted, and filled with lice. Her fingernails had grown into long, twisted claws. The mattress beneath her had rotted through, creating a pit of years' worth of filth, and she was alive. The woman was conscious, but she could not speak clearly. Her legs were so wasted from lack of movement that she could not stand. When officers tried to move her, parts of the mattress that had fused to her skin tore away. Her name was Blanche Monnier. She was 49 years old. The investigation revealed a story of obsession and cruelty. In the year 1876, Blanche had fallen in love. The man was a local lawyer, older and not wealthy, and considered beneath her social position. Madame Monnier forbade the relationship, believing the marriage would bring shame to the family. Blanche refused to give him up. What happened next was no accident. It was a deliberate act. Madame Monnier, with the help of her son Marcel, locked Blanche in the upstairs room. They planned to keep her there until she agreed to end the relationship. Blanche never agreed. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years. The lawyer waited for her, but when she never returned, he believed she had rejected him. He later married someone else and died in the year 1885, 9 years after Blanche was locked away. Blanche would remain imprisoned for another 16 years, long after any relationship was possible, held by a mother whose pride had turned into something monstrous. The discovery of Blanche Monnier shocked the world. Newspapers across Europe and America reported the story. Artists created illustrations of the horrific room. Madame Monnier and her son Marcel were arrested and charged with unlawful confinement and abuse. The trial began in October 1901. Madame Monnier, now 75, showed no remorse. She claimed she had acted in her daughter's best interest. She insisted Blanche had always been mentally unstable. Doctors testified about Blanche's condition. She was severely malnourished, with extreme muscle loss. She would never walk again. Her mental state had collapsed. She could barely speak and showed signs of deep trauma. Marcel claimed he acted only under his mother's orders, but evidence suggested he helped keep Blanche locked away and delivered her the bare minimum needed to survive. The verdict was quick. Marcel was sentenced to 15 months. Madame Monnier never served her sentence. She died 15 days after the trial. Blanche was taken to a psychiatric hospital in Blois, where she lived until her death in October 1913, at the age of 64. She never recovered physically or mentally. She remained withdrawn, sometimes lucid but often lost. She was afraid of mirrors and became distressed at the sight of her own reflection. The room where she had been held was photographed by investigators. The images still exist today. The house still stands, a quiet reminder of the cruelty that happened inside its walls. The most disturbing part of this story is not what happened inside the room, but what happened outside it. Blanche was imprisoned in the middle of a city. She was not in a remote location. She was in a normal house on a normal street. Servants must have worked there. Neighbors must have heard things. Delivery workers must have come and gone. Yet no one reported anything for a quarter of a century. The identity of the person who sent the anonymous letter has never been discovered. Some believe it was a servant or a family acquaintance who could no longer bear the secret. Whoever it was, they saved Blanche's life, although by then her life had been destroyed. Blanche Monnier's story is not ancient history. When she was freed in 1901, the modern world was already beginning. And yet police opened a door and discovered a horror that seemed pulled from the Middle Ages. This is a story about what happens when love meets pride, when family becomes a prison, and when society refuses to question what lies behind a respectable facade. Blanche Monnier was imprisoned by her own mother for wanting to choose her own path. What do you think of this story? How could this have happened in plain sight? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more forgotten histories, please subscribe and join us for the next one. Thank you for watching.